Do you ever feel unseen, misjudged, or passed over? This is not punishment. This is called preparation. And you're in good company. The most perfect example ever given to humanity went through a season of anonymity and hiddenness from ages 12 to 30. And that season from ages 12 to 30 of preparation prepared him to take on the most earth-shattering, life-changing act the world has ever known, to be crucified, followed by rising from the dead on the third day. Now, as a business owner, feeling unseen, feeling misjudged, being passed over is part of your preparation. But the big question is always this: how are we to respond to this? It happens to every leader I have met. I have not known a single soul who is a leader through history or personally who didn't go through a season of feeling looked over or unseen or misjudged or misunderstood. But how do you respond to this? I'm going to show you. If you have a Bible, go to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 27. And I'm going to read it to you right now. The relevance of this ancient passage to today in 2025 is absolutely mind-shattering. Why do you say, O Jacob, and assert, O Israel? This is God asking Israel, Jacob, Israel. Those are just synonymous terms for Israel. Why do you say this? He says, my way is hidden from the Lord. In other words, God doesn't see my situation. God doesn't feel or see or notice my suffering. Why doesn't God notice? Why doesn't God notice what I'm going through right now? And he goes on, and the next question, and the justice due me escapes the notice of my God. In other words, the justice that I deserve escapes God's notice. He doesn't notice it. I'm due something. Something's wrong. Something's off. Why is God not bringing me the justice that I deserve? Why, God? And then look at God's response in verse 28. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not become weary or tired. His understanding is inscrutable. So it's interesting how Israel is asking God a question, doubting his ability to help them, because Israel's been waiting on God. She's gone through tons of suffering and punishment for her sins. And God begins by responding with the question. And the first question he asks is, do you not know? Have you not heard? In other words, hint, hint, you should know this, Israel. Do you really not know this? And then he says, the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth. I mean, as if you were to go as far east as you can, as far as west as you can, the ends of the earth to the Jewish mind would be the entire world. This is the God who created everything. So why does God remind them that he is the creator? Because at the heart of Israel's complaint is a little hint of mistrust. It's like this. If God really is the sovereign creator of the universe, would you believe, even for a split second, that God does not see your suffering? Okay, but why does he then remind us that his understanding is infinite? Look again at verse 28. Does not, speaking of God, become weary or tired. God never has to rest. He doesn't take naps. He doesn't go to sleep. He never gets tired. Can you imagine that? His understanding is inscrutable. In other words, it's perfect. There's no slight taint in the wisdom of God. The idea is this. If the Almighty Creator never becomes weary or tired, and if his understanding is perfect, is there any room to believe that he is not working toward your good even though you can't see how in the present moment? Yes, you will be misunderstood. Yes, you will be mistreated. Yes, you will be misrepresented. Yes, you will be misjudged, misled, mischaracterized. But I love how Alicia Britt Cole said in her book called Anonymous, Jesus' Hidden Years and Yours. She said this, if God is mostly interested in who we are becoming, then seasons of hiddenness are not a waste. They are a gift. Okay, great. So we're supposed to trust God because he is sovereign, he is good, he is wise. I get that. But what are we supposed to do about things in the meantime? How do we respond when you feel misjudged, overlooked, misunderstood, misrepresented? Well, the answer is in verses 29 to 31. Look at verse 29. He, this God, and now he's going to answer, gives strength to the weary. If you're tired, he will give you strength. And to him who lacks might, he increases power. If you're lacking might, God will give you power. Though youths grow weary and tired, it happens. And vigorous young men stumble badly, happens all the time. Yet, here's the key, and it's the only command in this entire section, the only command: those who wait for the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary. This is one of the hardest passages for me because I'm not naturally a patient person. Especially as a business builder, I push hard and I want to see results. But it says here that those who wait on the Lord, he will give them what they need. Now, notice he doesn't say anything about when. Notice he doesn't say anything about to what degree, and he doesn't even say how. The strength may come from a place you or I least expect. But the command is this: to wait on God. Now, I know that sounds really motivating, so I just wait. I just wait and keep waiting and wait a little longer and just keep waiting. And that can be extremely frustrating, and I get that. But let me tell you something. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years. Actually, 2014, over 10 years now. And there is one thing that I have seen consistently happen through all the process. There are seasons in being an entrepreneur that are very difficult, sometimes very discouraging, not super inspiring. And in those moments, God was always teaching me to trust him. And when I did, he always came through more than I expected or believed, which is my own lack of faith. Yes, it takes faith to believe, but I always believed less. But here's the cool thing. Jesus said if your faith is only as big as a mustard seed, you can move a mountain into the ocean. That small, that tiny. God is so gracious, even a tiny bit of faith, he will honor. So as you build your business, you are going to go through seasons of anonymity, seasons of hiddenness, seasons of God's not doing anything here. What's going on? And by waiting, he doesn't mean don't keep building. He doesn't mean don't keep serving. He doesn't mean don't keep providing for your family. He doesn't mean don't keep giving. Of course not. He's saying wait on him for the answer. So sometimes you're going to build a business while you are sick. For 15 days straight, I had a fever and a severe headache. And every single day except for one when I was in the hospital, I continued to build my business. Now, could I do as much? No, but I continued. Why? Because this is what I was called to do. And I know this: while I continue, someone else is going to stop. They're going to rest all day. They're going to give up. They're going to say, this is too hard. Something's going to distract them. I'm going to keep going. But in that season, I've had to wait upon God for healing. I never had a virus that long in my life, ever. And yet it grew my patience and it grew my resilience. And looking back, it gave me a message to give to you. Deep in the dark ages lived a blacksmith. The people loved this blacksmith because his craft was excellent. He outmatched even the most experienced blacksmiths for miles around. Now, the blacksmith had a son named Eli. Day after day, Eli begged his father, please, God, please, Dad, let me forge my own sword. And the father would always object and say, you're too young. Please, Dad, how will I ever learn if I don't start? And finally, one day, the blacksmith smiled and agreed, but under one condition: his son must wait and watch first. So the next morning, the boy came to the forge, walked into the workshop. Day after day, he stood beside his father and watched as fire consumed metal, as hammer struck glowing steel, as water hissed when the hot blade was plunged into the basin. It looked violent, painful, confusing. And then one evening, as a storm rolled in, the father left to help a neighbor with the storm. Unwilling to wait any longer, the boy Eli entered the workshop. He stared up at the anvil and he said to himself, if my father really loved me, he'd let me start forging now. And so Eli grabbed a piece of metal, lit the fire, and began to pound. The fury of sparks with every strike inspired him, and so he struck harder and faster. But then one hit missed, and the sword began to slip. Eli instinctively reached out and grabbed the blade. He dropped the blade and screamed in pain. When his father returned home, he immediately knew exactly what had happened, and he said, son, let me see your hand. And as his son lifted his marred hand, he said, son, you need to see a doctor. Hours later, the doctor concluded that his son would never hold a sword with his right hand. Tears welled up in Eli's eyes. "Dad, why didn't you help me?" "I am helping you, Eli. Every blow, every delay, every unanswered moment is not neglect. It's formation. I'm not just giving you a sword. I'm giving you the strength to carry it." "But Dad, this is my sword hand," he wept as he held up his mangled hand. "How will I ever wield a sword?" "By learning how to use your left, son," his dad replied. "It will take longer now, but if you trust me and if you wait on me, your time will come. So do not give up."